So I was talking about the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center. Right now, we are in the atrium space of the train station that the Heritage Center is actually connected to. So I'm going to kind of spin around. If I'm going too fast, just send me a note in the chat. I tend to move quickly when I have touchscreen access. It's definitely a nice feature for giving the tours. But here you can see, this is our space here. The train station that we're in was completed in 2016, and our Heritage Center is just through those yellow doors over that way, and it's built inside of the former 1863 U.S. Customs House. That was not part of the Underground Railroad, but the location right outside of the front doors of the building was part of the Underground Railroad. That was the suspension bridge that Harriet Tubman and many others had crossed into freedom in Canada. You can actually see Canada from right outside. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pop outside right now and show. So here is the outside of our building, and straight ahead, the bridge, we can kind of see it slightly in the corner. If you see my mouse, I'm kind of circling around it there. And then there's Canada, our friends in Canada. Leslie, you are over there somewhere. Hello. So this was a really important part and spot on the Underground Railroad, and a really great place for our Heritage Center to be able to share this with the public and create a museum experience. So here's the outside of our building here. The train station on this side, and then we actually have some of our murals that you can kind of see way in the distance over that way. So now I'm going to pop back inside, and we'll start back here for our network wall inside of the atrium. So when we give tours at the Underground Railroad Heritage Center, or when people come to visit, this is where we direct them first so that they can learn a little bit about the Underground Railroad before they head into the museum and learn specifically about what was going on in Niagara Falls. So we kept it really simple out here, mostly image-based. And you'll see the arrows, these arrows, the red arrows with the white text, they go throughout the whole museum. They're kind of like they actually provide wayfinding direction, but they also kind of serve as that flow that guides people with different words and quotes that relate to freedom. These ones out here are specifically time period Underground Railroad quotes and words of people that were part of the Underground Railroad. And then inside those quotes, they change, and sometimes they might be by more contemporary people talking about freedom that's more universal. So a lot of what we do throughout the Heritage Center and through our programming and our mission is to connect the past to the present. So, you know, we know that the Underground Railroad happened during a certain time period, but also those legacies continue to still affect us today, and they have throughout time. And also there's still an ongoing struggle for freedom around the world today too, and that's something that we talk about in our connection from past to present. So getting a little bit closer over here, again, as I said, I won't spend too much time out here. This is, again, like I said, giving the introduction to the Underground Railroad. What we kind of learned as we started to build the Heritage Center and open, which we did in 2018. I'm not sure if I had said that before. So we're pretty new. Even though the Heritage Center had been in the works for over a decade, with a lot of research by our friend and colleague, Judith Wellman, and many others that contributed to that research and being able to get it into a place where we could then turn it into a museum and find a way to share these stories with the public every day. So what we did here was actually, we wanted to make sure that people coming to the Heritage Center had an idea of kind of what the Underground Railroad was. A lot of people actually would sometimes wonder if this is where the underground train went to Canada. Some people had never heard of the Underground Railroad before, as we were talking with people. So we wanted to make sure that everybody kind of started at the same place. They understood that the Underground Railroad wasn't a train, and it wasn't underground, and it was a network of people and places. So we emphasize that on these little panels that you kind of see here. As we go throughout, and the panels, they change with more arrows that provide direction, showing the routes of the Underground Railroad. And as we kind of go further, you can hopefully maybe see here on the screen that the arrows also go south. So really, people escaped by any means necessary trying to get towards freedom, and they had people along the way to help them, as well as the self-agency of themselves, as they learned how to navigate and escape with much courage to be able to find freedom in Canada. So our exhibit is called One More River to Cross, as you see here. And that last big arrow there takes us into the museum, and we're going to kind of go around this way. And I know I was mentioning earlier that you may perhaps see a cat pop in my screen. That may happen in just a second. I'm trying to push him to the side as I talk, but his big head might just jump in here. So I apologize if you might see my cat in a minute. All right, as we go through, now we're going to head into the Heritage Center here. And I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a behind the scenes tour, as I was kind of mentioning earlier. We offer these virtual tours now pretty regularly for group tour experiences as well as for school groups. And it's actually been turning out really well. So if you have a group or know of any groups that would be interested in this type of experience, that's definitely something I can talk about too, and answering questions or just towards the end. Okay, so we're going to head in here. And now if you were here in person with us on a tour, you would be greeted right here at our front desk by one of our wonderful staff members. We have all the people that work at the front desk or give tours at our Heritage Center are paid staff. And we've built in a pretty extensive interpretive and dialogue program, as I was talking a little bit just a few minutes ago about connecting past to present. We also, through doing that, with our tour programs, we do a technique called facilitated dialogue, where we're having dialogue and conversation with people throughout the tour experience, and also just when we talk with folks who come into the museum at the front desk. And that's to really be able to kind of get their visitors' perspectives and thoughts and engagement, and also allow them to think deeper about the things that we're talking about through the conversation methods. Okay, so then just since we're going through here, you can take a look at our retail shop over here. It changes pretty frequently, so it looks similar, but there's definitely some new products in there. So that's, if you're ever interested in checking that out, please do. Our website is niagarafallsundergroundrailroad.org. And we also have an online store as well, where you can purchase a lot of items. So definitely feel free to come check that out if you're interested. Okay, so now as we kind of jumped a little all over the place. That's kind of how it feels on site too, because you learn a little bit about the Underground Railroad in the atrium space. And then here's kind of the check-in, admissions, front desk, that kind of thing. And now we head into the gallery spaces here to dive in deeper to the stories of the Underground Railroad in Niagara Falls. So we have some interactives here as well that I can play for you. When you come into the space as an in-person visitor, there will be lots of sounds that you'll hear in this space too, horses and hustle and bustle of Niagara Falls. Because what we really tried to do in this space is, immerse the visitor in Niagara Falls during the time of the Underground Railroad, to help give them a better sense of feeling as if they were there, to allow for, a deeper connection to these stories. And Niagara Falls was a small city at the time. It was a hustle and bustle place. Lots of people coming in and out, traveling through. The suspension bridge that was located outside of this window was built in 1848 and rebuilt in 1855 to incorporate rail traffic. So there was a need for that, and lots of people traveling through. Also, the hotel industry in downtown Niagara Falls, which is right where the falls actually was, or where they are. That's a little bit down the road from where the Heritage Center is. So they were kind of two separate city and village at the time. But we kind of immersed those all kind of together, as we had limited space, so we couldn't be sharing a whole lot of in-depth about each. As you see, as we go through, it is a very, very small space, but it really allows for an intimate connection with this history, or with the people that you're going through the space with, allowing for that conversation. So as we are here in Niagara Falls, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer to our interactive here. So you'd walk up to the screen here, and it's a touch screen, and you're able to kind of explore some of the people who are represented here. And if I click on these little dots, circles that we have here, these will then play the videos, which I think I just started that one. Let me see which one. Oh, John Morrison would be a good one. So John Morrison, I'm going to talk a little bit about here. John Morrison was the head waiter at the Cataract House. And he led all of the waiters that we're going to talk more about in all of their work as waiters themselves within the dining room, but also as agents on the Underground Railroad. We call them secret agents on the Underground Railroad. They were kind of operating, out in the open, but at the same time, not so much. It was kind of a little bit of both, as they were helping freedom seekers and helping others on the Underground Railroad get to freedom. So I'm going to play this video. It does not have any sound. I wonder if I can make it bigger for you to see. Perfect. But there is text that goes with it. So John Morrison was extremely important during the time of the Underground Railroad here in Niagara Falls. As you can see from the video story that we showed here, he was responsible for assisting freedom seekers across the river, which he did. And actually, let me just figure out how to get out of this real quick. Okay, perfect. So his story was really important, but also all of the waiters as well. And we'll learn a little bit more about some of those kind of stories as we go through. This is just kind of as an introduction. So that's what we do here for visitors, is kind of introduce them to the different people that were living, working, and passing through in Niagara Falls, to really show how diverse the community was in terms of how Niagara Falls operated and what it was like for freedom seekers who were passing through here or escaping right from here as well. Some of the other people that you will learn about in these stories here are, and I think I might, okay, I thought I was starting it. Okay, so a businessman, James Patterson, who worked as a waiter and saved up money to start his own hotel called the Free Soil Hotel. His story is depicted here. We also have the story of bounty hunters who knew that people were escaping across the river in Niagara Falls. So while this was a safe place, sometimes it also wasn't a safe place. As many said, freedom wasn't guaranteed until Canada. We also have the toll collector story, which is the story happening at the suspension bridge, which was really interesting. When we talk about the toll collector story, we really talk a lot about being a bystander, or what we like to say is like an upstander. So the story with the toll collector, I'll go ahead and play it. And I think I'll narrate it too, so it's not just silent, so I can read the words as well as I play it. Oops. Actually, I didn't press play. Hold on a second. There. Okay. So this takes place at the suspension bridge. The carriage came to a stop at the toll booth. The men inside faced one last obstacle. The toll collector's job was simply to take the fare, 50 cents for the carriage and 50 cents for each passenger aboard. Did he see them? Would he stop the carriage to question the driver? Did it matter to them why they were crossing the bridge to Canada? The suspension bridge over the Niagara River was a key funnel to Canada from New York. Hundreds of freedom seekers crossed it by train, foot, or carriage. Many residents in the area were sympathetic to their plight and perhaps chose to ignore rather than report their actions. So we see a lot of this going on in Niagara Falls, during the Underground Railroad, is the opportunity to say something or not say something, and that could save somebody's life, or bring them back into slavery. So we see that a lot. So Niagara Falls, again, really, really important place. As we go over here, these panels here talk a little bit more about the community in Niagara Falls, who was here, what were people doing, and that kind of thing. But I'm going to keep jumping ahead. Again, just trying to give you guys an overview of this today, to encourage you to also go on a tour with one of our amazing visitor experience specialists on a group. to be able to experience it that way, and just trying to give you kind of a background again about the Heritage Center and how we came to be. So moving along here, this is now our recreation of the Cataract House Hotel. Here you can see here on this panel, it's we call it a portal to freedom. It's where the most of the waiters worked. There were a few other hotels as well. Most worked at the Cataract House Hotel under John Morrison during the 1840s and 50s. And we'll turn around in here. Oops, I jumped ahead a little bit too much. I'm just going to turn around here. Hope that's not making anybody too dizzy. Okay, so in this gallery, again, this is where we really learn about the waiters. What we tried to do when we built the exhibits here was create an immersive experience. I was mentioning sound. We've got the videos. I didn't talk yet about the watercolors, which I can do. Right, actually, I'll just do that right now. So the watercolors that you saw in the last videos that we were playing were commissioned specifically for these stories for the Heritage Center, and they were meant to be animated. So the watercolor artists who created them worked with our design firm to be able to create them in order to be animated. So that was planned out. But what's really important about that is that when doing this work and this research and putting these stories together, you know, most of it really came from words, from documents, from different pieces of different documents in order to tell a full story. So we had to really look at how do we do this in an engaging way with visitors in a museum-like setting? And how do we take that from many different forms of documents and put them into more than just text on panels so that people can really engage with them, especially in a visual way? So the watercolors were one of the ways that we thought, or that we worked on to really try to bring the stories to life. And really importantly, also give faces and visual representation to the individuals whose stories that we're trying to share here. And these stories really haven't been shared very widely or very publicly prior to the opening of the Heritage Center, as research was still kind of underway. The stories were kind of just waiting to be told and found. We found many stories as we were putting the exhibit together. Many times, Judy and I, we followed a lead and we found some more, and then we added a whole new story into the exhibit as we were designing it, because we were finding more and more, which was really exciting. And I hope that we can also get back to that soon. We kind of shifted gears real fast into operations since 2018. So we've kind of been hanging out with the operational piece at the moment, but you know, there's so many stories that are still out there that we would like to continue that research. So anyway, try not to get too sidetracked here for you. I was talking about watercolors and visual representation. What we also do, as you've kind of started to see, is the scenic components and scenic build outs. So there's a table in the middle and then part of a table over to the left-hand side a little bit. And those are kind of the tables that are coming out of the big image that's in the background, which is an interior historical image of the Cataract House. And we have John Morrison standing there as a cutout. So he's welcoming everybody into the Cataract House gallery here. And again, we did that to kind of allow visitors to have the opportunity to be, you know, kind of immersed into things that are no longer there. The Cataract House burned in 1945. We worked on an archaeological dig to unearth some of the walls that are under, there's basically, it's mostly a park and parking lot where that the Cataract House used to stand. But we were kind of really working with, you know, trying to bring things to life that no longer stand, and stories of individuals who we don't have photos or images or visual representation of. So this is kind of that, what ended up happening through our problem solving and everything like that to be able to bring this to life. So over here on this, on these panels, you learn, again, specific stories about the hotel and the waiters. I referred to the waiters as secret agents before. We have that on our panel there. Another thing that we did as well, if I can zoom in, yep. This image, let me use my mouse, oops, right here, is an image of waiters from Cooperstown, actually. And this is one of the first images that we used years ago to talk about the stories of the Underground Railroad in Niagara Falls. Because as I mentioned, we didn't really have images of waiters, of freedom seekers, of anybody's stories that we were trying to share. So we still use that image today, and we refer to, you know, we say that it's not the waiters at the Cataract House, but we really knew and believe that it's important to, you know, be able to show as much visual representation as possible when we're talking about the people of the stories here. Over on this middle panel here, I'm circling it here. This is a story of Austin Stewart, who was an abolitionist who visited the Cataract House. His image is there. And we actually found him in the Cataract House Hotel registers that are located at the Niagara Falls Public Library when we were building the exhibit. So that's an example of, we came across his name and we were familiar with him, and we looked it up, we confirmed from his writings and determined that that was Austin Stewart, matched his signature, and there was an image, a published image of him, which was really exciting to be able to really show that. So a lot of the people that came to the Cataract House, they were from all over the world, as Niagara Falls is today. A lot of visitors from the South. So visitors coming from the South often brought their enslaved servants with them on their honeymoon, vacation, travels. That was kind of a normal thing to do. And of course, the waiters knew this. So they helped many reach freedom as they were brought up here enslaved, and helped them to get just across the river, away from the Cataract House, down the stairs next to the falls, and across the ferry boat. And I'll show you some pictures of that in the next gallery. The hotel owners, we can infer that they knew what was going on, because the waiters never lost their job, even when stories of escapes made it into the public newspapers and different things like that. The waiters never lost their job and continued their Underground Railroad activity, which was a really, of course, really positive thing, really critical for the Underground Railroad in assisting people. We have a couple different interactives through here, but I want to keep us going because I know we got a little bit of a late start today, and just keep us going to the Heritage Center. And again, just trying to give an overview so you know a little bit about how this came to be and what some of the stories are in here. So in this gallery, there's a couple things going on. There is a couple of videos. I'll play one. Let me see, actually, I think I'm going to move here and then turn around. So sorry again if I'm making anyone dizzy. If we look over here on this wall over here, there are two images. I'll try to zoom in here in just a second. There's the stairs, which are here, which are right next to the falls. And this image is depicting tourists going down the stairs. And then they reach the bottom here where there's ferry boats. So that is where travelers, tourists crossed, but it worked for freedom seekers because it was access across the river to freedom in Canada, which is just across the river. Let's see here. That works a little bit better, so you can kind of see the pictures kind of coming in there. And what I'll do, actually, I'm going to play Martha's Story, which is another watercolor interactive piece here. And this one actually has narration. This is Martha. Okay. So now you'll hear Keith David's voice, who's a famous actor, instead of mine. Actually, I don't think it's playing sound. Can unmute. Oh, that's why I have to do it. Okay. Okay. Oop. That one. Okay, can everybody hear me now? Okay, cool. Just going back between devices here. Okay, so Martha's story here, and it's playing again. I know, and Leslie, you had asked a question in the chat that you could kind of see a little bit in Martha's story playing out here. So Leslie asked, where do we know where the ferry stairs were actually located? And Judy and I did a lot of work on that as we were trying to develop the Heritage Center. So we have different images, illustrations, and photographs from different time periods. And really, they're kind of to the left. If you're looking right at the falls, it's kind of hard to say. So if you look at, let me show in this picture here, up in this corner, you can kind of see the stairs curving and people are kind of walking down this way. It might be hard to see, and then they're kind of coming around. Now I'll turn a little bit here. And then in this image, I wonder, can I zoom any more? Let me see, a little bit. And then in this image here, it almost looks as if the stairs are right next to the falls, but maybe there's an angle in that image. So it's kind of a little bit hard to tell.
So,
But go ahead,
Ellie, would
Leslie.
it be near where the observation point is at Maid of the Mist? Is that what it looks like maybe?
Yes, so it's actually, I'm going to say it's probably, it was located right in the middle between the falls, like the edge of the American Falls and the observation tower. So not quite.
Okay, yeah,
row.
okay. All right, thank you.
Sure. And there was a period of time as well where there was actually, now I'm forgetting what they were called. They were like the carts that like actually people like rode down under like a covered tunnel. I wonder if we have any, I don't know if we have pictures of that in here.
Like a
It showed it.
gondola?
What's that?
A gondola?
No, there was a certain word for the technology at the time, and I'm blanking on it. But as soon as I think about it or think of it, I will let you know. But basically the stairs changed and morphed over time. So we worked at it, and we tried to figure out when Martha's story happened and others happened, what did the stairs look like? And I think we kind of just got to kind of a hybrid model of, as we did the watercolors, something kind of in the middle. So that one was a little tough. So I'm glad you asked about that, because actually that was a challenge for us. And we spent a lot of time diving into every image we could possibly find of Niagara Falls to be able to determine kind of in the middle. And then it changed in different years to being this kind of cart-like thing to actual just straight stairs. So, okay. I'm not sure. I saw Leslie's question pop up. I'm not sure if anybody else's did. Sage, just let me know if there's, or actually I can look right here real quick. I didn't want to miss any questions if there were any. Okay, great. Just some comments. Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll keep going. So you learned Martha's story there in crossing. And crossing at the base of the falls at the ferry boat. And it was pretty incredible. If you saw, if you noticed in that watercolor that it was just this tiny little boat, big falls, big river. And it, if you're standing there today, in 2021, to imagine going over in a little wooden boat in all weather and all seasons, after you potentially have just traveled hundreds of miles on foot, by train, to be at this place and to see the falls and to see freedom right across the river and then cross by ferry boat. I try to imagine it as much as I can, and I could feel that in my body, just thinking about what that might have been like for so many freedom seekers. Another crossing point, as I kind of have mentioned already a little bit, it was the suspension bridge. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see it in the gallery. I'm just going to spin around. So over here, we built a recreation of the suspension bridge footbridge, not to size, but to fit within the museum. So up here on the top is the top of the railroad tracks that go above. Those were built in 1855. The original bridge was 1848. Some pictures are on the panel over here to kind of check to see what that looks like. So freedom seekers crossed either by foot, carriage, or on the top level by train, as Harriet Tubman did. And many other freedom seekers as well, just crossing over by train. In the videos over here, we also share Joe Bailey's story, who crossed with Harriet Tubman and a group in November of 1856 into freedom. And Harriet Tubman recounts that in her autobiography, and it's in a couple other places as well. Some of you may be familiar with that story. Now we're going to go onto the bridge here. I'm actually just going to go over here so we can look at the bridge from this angle. So here, this is an image of Niagara Falls. We tried to get as close as we could to the appropriate view vantage point as if somebody was standing on the bridge. This is still not exactly right. It's still a little close. But that was also an adventure trying to find the right image for that. And this is as close as we got. So we know that the distance is a little bit further than that's depicted in this image, but did our best that we could with what we could find and what was available. This is lit from behind, so it's a really cool moment here in the exhibit. We also have this line that you see here. It's projected, and this line here shows freedom and slavery and Canada and the United States, as if you were to cross that line. We have discussions in this space about crossing the line, this imaginary line that was so real. And we talk about, what borders mean and who creates them, and what do they mean? Are they political? And in this case, it was very life and death. You had to cross that line to get to freedom and out of slavery. So we talk a lot about that in our tours as well. Over in this gallery are more stories of crossings, and we tried to put in a little bit about Lewiston. There's just a little bit there, Buffalo, but we need so much more space to really be able to tell all the stories and to continue to find the stories that are there. And we just haven't, all compiled the research together. So, we've got decades to go, but I'm excited to kind of see what's going to happen next. And so glad we're at a place that we have a physical place and now a virtual place where people can come and learn these stories like they haven't had before. We keep going here, and this is our last gallery, and it shifts quite a bit, so it looks a little bit different here. So this is what we call our Freedom Gallery. It is our kind of contemporary, or really the past present connection here. I was mentioning that the red and white arrows that go throughout, you can kind of see them on the ceilings. If you've noticed as we've gone through, we kind of bring them here to the end, and in this gallery space, we have different mosaics of images, and we have videos that are just around the corner. I'll show you one in just a second, that show and share stories of the ongoing struggle for freedom that some people that we've represented here in Western New York have talked about, their journeys with freedom. But what we really wanted in this gallery space was a place for dialogue and conversation, and a way for people to connect and step out of the past for a minute immediately after they've kind of been immersed in it with the waiters and freedom seekers, and to acknowledge and recognize that there's still a struggle and an ongoing struggle today, and there has been, for freedom for all across the world. In this space, it also allows people to kind of take a look around at the mosaics of images and connect on a personal level from their own perspective on what speaks to them, since they're all different stories. But the universal theme here is the fight for freedom. All right, and I'm going to kind of spin around here. So these are where we display some of our videos, and I see a question just came in from Deirdre. Oop, let me pull that back up. I'd like to be real time with questions whenever possible. Okay, so Deirdre asked, Allie, you must have had a lot of designers and artists involved in the project. How did that come together? So actually, yeah, that's good. Let's talk about that. So that's a little bit of the history and how this all kind of came to be. So I started on the project in 2015, and we had an all-volunteer board of directors. You may know some of the folks who had worked on this and were on our board. Bill Bradbury, Denise Easterling, Judy Wellman wasn't on our board, but she was the historian that did all the research, and she was fantastic to work alongside with for 2 years of doing this work every day. So what we ended up doing is when I came on board in 2015, we were trying to find a way to kind of move to the next step and actually create an exhibit. So what we were really looking for was to be able to design it out. So we ended up doing an RFQ process, a request for qualifications, and we sent that out to a bunch of different firms all over the US and even Canada as well, to get their credentials back. And we really were looking for somebody who understood the stories that we were trying to show, and not just give a traditional, here's the Underground Railroad story, because Niagara Falls is history with the Underground Railroad is so unique, as you can kind of see with the waiters, as all of our stories are. And we really wanted a design firm that would be able to really see that and pay attention to that, and be able to bring those stories to the forefront, to focus on the Black individuals who were part of these stories, bring their stories to the forefront visually, through text, through media. So we were really fortunate to get back a proposal essentially from Studio Tectonic is the firm. They're out of Boulder, Colorado. And we did weigh some options. We did have a local firm and some closer firms who did submit to do our exhibit for us, but we felt that the firm out of Colorado, Studio Tectonic, really understood our stories and what we were trying to do, and that connection from past to present that was really important to us in this work. And that had been really determined, decades prior as community members, and then later our board of directors, in their tireless efforts to really get these stories out there, and not have anyone else come in and say, no, these are the stories you should tell, but to actually tell the stories of Niagara Falls specifically. And there were sometimes previously where that, those voices weren't really necessarily being heard on getting these stories out there, and focusing on these ones, on freedom seekers and on the waiters. So we got Studio Tectonic, and then from there we did another process with them to bring on our fabricator, Universal Services Associates. They're out of Philadelphia. They fabricated everything following the design plans. And also our media company, Richard Lewis Media Group out of Boston. So kind of everybody coming from everywhere, but we kind of knew what we were looking for in terms of creating the right team, and they really did a great job with that in terms of bringing all of this together, and we were kind of on an expedited time frame as well. So somehow we made that happen, but I definitely thank our chairman, Bill Bradbury, for that, because he kept us moving every day. Yeah, Leslie, I see you clapping. He did. There was no time to be tired, no time to take a break. We had to get this exhibit and Heritage Center up and going. And it was a great experience. And as you can see here, these are, kind of where we ended up. I'm kind of giving a little bit of a general background on that. It definitely took a team. We had to up our budget in order to achieve some of the things that you see here with media and different things like that, that weren't part of the original thinking a little bit. But as we started to see what we could do when we were starting to work with designers who really heard us and were listening, we knew that we had to move our budget around to be able to incorporate some of that, to really be able to make this stand out. So from here, now we're circling back around. There's our front doors over there. I'm gonna head back down the hallway there. Oh, actually, before I do, I'm gonna turn us around. Sorry again for any dizziness. So these are some of the final, we like to say these are some of the final words, as parting words, as people are heading out of the Heritage Center. Some of the quotes of people throughout time that relate to freedom, the universal idea that we're trying to share, and that past to present. Reading this one here, my liberty depends on you being free too. The time is always right to do right. Some of them have been shortened a little bit from their original text, just to fit on these arrows, and all these letters had to be cut out with a special machine. I mean, it was like a whole big thing, but really exciting to see that process and learn about that. And we have all the information here on this panel on the side. So, and then as visitors leave, they come back out through this way, and they can circle back over here to our museum shop or to our front desk. I'm going to bring us back out with this view, maybe, of going in this way, so I can jump back in if anybody has any questions or anything like that. I think that probably wraps up most of the things that I kind of wanted to share with everybody today. Again, just trying to give some behind the scenes, a little bit of background and how we got there, and just definitely get folks excited to hopefully join on a group tour, bring friends and family, bring a group that they might be affiliated with, for a virtual tour of the Heritage Center. to learn more about these stories, get more in depth, and have conversations with our awesome visitor experience specialists who are really, really phenomenal. And I wish I could introduce you to them all on this and learn from them. So, oh, and Leslie, I see a question from you here. And Leslie, you're asking, how long should one expect to spend in the museum, which is a great question. So people usually spend about an hour. Some people are a little less, some people are a little bit more. As you can see, it's not very big. So if you're the type of visitor or a visitor wants to just kind of browse real quick, I mean, they could definitely go through in about 15 minutes in terms of just kind of looking at a couple of interactives, read a few panels, and then pop back out again. We definitely encourage visitors to spend much more time than that and really dive deep into the stories and also have conversations with us. If they're not on a tour, we invite them to talk with us at the front desk. Before pre-COVID, we did a lot of stuff where we were out and about in the space, kind of like right next to people having conversations. I really miss those days. And on the tour itself, minimum an hour. We try to structure our tours to an hour, but our visitor experience specialists talk a lot. And they also, ask good questions of visitors, so conversations keep flowing very often. I see Leslie's